Hello, my lovely friends, and welcome back to the Classy Kiwi Show. Today, we're gonna go over another design for a Japanese castle. This one's a bit more complicated, but I took a lot of time to come through and show it in the slowest and easiest way so that anybody can build it. So without further ado, let us drop the shaders and get right into the build. So to start off, I would like to note that I use dark prismarine for the roof. This can be kind of expensive, so you can use some of these other roof options like warped stem, stone brick blocks, or red nether brick. Moving along here, copy this inscription I'm showing you. You can pause this. I also have the picture linked in the description. And remember, when I'm marking 4 like this, we are going to count that little inside corner. So from here, this is an overhead shot of what we're doing next. The black is going to mark little stripped spruce wood pieces that we're putting down. And I'll show you in first person here, so we're going to count 1, 2, 1. Then just follow this along. We're going to put 1 right there, count 1, 2, put 1 down. And then every inside corner and every outside corner, we're going to put 1 as well, as you'll see I'm doing. Then we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, put 1 down. Then the inside corner, then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, put 1 down. And I used wool here to make it very easy for you to count along with me how many blocks I'm putting for each spacing. And they're not too bad. You can take some time to put these down. We won't have to do really hard spacings like this a lot. It's really just on this first floor. They're going to have to focus on the spacing. So from here, we're going to put 1 in the corner, then the outside, and you will notice we're doing every inside corner and every outside corner. We're putting 1, and then the rest are just on top of the wall as I'm putting these along. This middle space is just all space 3. And as we look on the right side or the left side, depending on your angle, what you'll notice is that both sides are going to be completely the same. This build is 100% symmetrical, and you should remember that for this project because that will be important and it'll make your job a lot easier to remember. Anything on the left side will be repeated on the right side. The front and back will be a bit different, but left and right are the same. And if it's a bit easier for you, I'll link the picture with the black dots as well from overhead in the description if that's easier than watching first person, but this first person will be here. You can watch over it a couple times if that helps you out. So moving on from here, we're going to extend all of our little stripped spruce sections up 2 blocks. So watch, these are all coming up 2, and we're just going to come along and extend all of them up 2, and it shouldn't be too bad. And I should note that if you would like, you can use some stripped spruce logs here as well instead of the wood if that is easier because it can cost a bit less. Now we're going to fill in along the line, so not on the outside, just straight over that wool line or whatever you use to inscribe it, you don't have to use wool, with smooth sandstone. We're going to make all of the walls in this build with smooth sandstone because it'll give us a really good kind of older look to the build, more like an actual castle that you would end up seeing. And so from here, we're going to take our roof material, and this might end up being something like warped stem if you're using that instead. Slabs, we're going to take a top slab and push it across just all the way around, and it's going to be 1 block away from the wall and kind of form a little halo around the outside corner pillars that we made. So you can watch me do this. I'll switch into third person so you can see it a bit easier from outside. We're just going to put this all the way around as a top slab. So this will be right even with what we've already built. And as we come around here, I'll pause for a second so that you can see exactly how this should look when we're looking over it. There is that spacing. From here, I'm going to show you how we're going to build all of the corners that raise up. So we're going to add our top stripped spruce wood and then kind of just add in slabs like this, just coming upwards. Then a lantern on bottom and a warped fence on top. It might be a bit of a different color, but you really won't notice it because of the side of this build. It should look great. And if you're already using a warped stem for the roof, it should just work great from there. And so we're going to do this on every outside corner. We're going to do the same pattern. We're going to come around, and I'll speed it up because you're going to get very good at this. We build a whole bunch of these corners throughout the build. And do note, as we come along to this side corner, it's going to push right up to the other end because of how small that corner is. But there is enough room for you to put it in. For every corner except for 1 at the very end of this build, there will always be enough room for you to push these all the way back down in the same exact pattern. Now we're going to come and we're going to cover up that inside block that's missing with a bottom slab that's coming around here of the same roofing. So you'll notice that's 1/2 block higher than the original halo we put, and it's just covering up that missing gap in between the wall and the start of the roof that we've built. And we will copy pretty much this exact same roof design for every floor on this, so just get used to we're going to stack up this one half slab higher, and then as we come back in, we're actually going to take another half slab. So if you're in creative, you can easily just place down full blocks like this, but if you're doing in survival to conserve resources, you can just use a hollow half slab, so it will have that space in between it. We're going to do another layer just covering up the walls, this third layer of just one half slab higher. And again, it's just to conserve resources. If you're doing this in survival, you can leave that little gap there when I share the materials, because if you need a material list, you're probably in survival as opposed to creative. We're going to show it with slabs, assuming you do this trick, because that is going to cut in half the amount of resources you need for that part. Moving back to the front, we can start our wall designs, and for this first wall facade, we're going to put this in and just build it as shown. You can watch over this a couple times and pause it as needed, but pretty much all of our wall designs are going to be pretty similar. We're going to put in these little stairs upside down along the top, and as we move to the side, we're going to do another trick on this side, which we'll do on most all of it, which is using signs along the bottom and top to kind of fake another kind of support beam coming through. And remember, when you're putting these signs, do not write anything on them, because if you start writing on the signs, they might actually take up more storage on your device, and that would not be good. It might make your game a bit more laggy, so just make sure that when you place down these signs, they are completely blank as you're doing them. And as we move along to the side, I'm going to show you a different lantern design that we can use for the side. I'm using actually jungle wood. You can also use acacia wood if that's easier for you to get, and a sea lantern. And we are going to do this in the very front, but coming along to these other side corners, we're going to start adding these in. And coming along here, again, these side patterns are pretty repetitive. They might have little differences depending on where we're building them, but overall they're going to be the same in that we're using these little buttons on the side, stairs kind of coming through to shape it, and then just little spruce fence windows coming through here. And again, just going to put these down. This should get pretty relaxing because we're going to do this a lot, and it is nice to just put in our design once we have a blank wall to just paint it on our little canvas there. Nice, because smooth sandstone almost does look like canvas. And I will show you, if you're on an absolute toaster and really can't handle the signs, you can just do another layer of stripped spruce wood if you want along the bottom. That would just replace signs. Coming along, again, we're going to put down this other design for the lantern on the side, and if you can't afford it, you can just use regular lanterns, but I prefer this. And then another design that is again very similar coming along the side here. They shouldn't be too complicated, and once you get used to it, they really are pretty similar. And one thing to note with this that I think is important is small differences don't really matter. I'm showing you, you don't have to do this, but these are just like a couple small differences that you could do, and they really don't matter if you change it up a bit. And the reason I'm showing you this, why it really doesn't look different, is don't worry about mistakes on a build this big. Mistakes really do not matter, because when you look at builds that are bigger like this, they once you get far enough away, you aren't going to notice any like small mistakes, anything that's like one block too wide or one block too short, or something that is designed slightly wrong. So if you can't figure out something that I'm doing, like it's absolutely too complicated or something, just put in something else and move on. Don't hyper-fixate on any of this, because it's not super important. As long as you get the overall shape that I'm showing you, this will work out. That said, I'm going to go through slowly, as slow as I can, and show you in a way that I think is best. So if you do pay attention, I really do think it is possible to copy this down pretty much block for block as I've done it, but again, don't worry, it's okay if you make a few small mistakes. It really does not matter. We're going to move on from here, and I will note, when you're doing the survival, please, please, please remember to light everything up and sleep as much as you can. You do not want a creeper coming up and ruining it, and especially the inside. As we start to build this up, if you leave the inside not lit up, then tons of monsters will spawn in even during the day, and that can be a huge problem for your build overall. So in survival, remember, just put down a lot of torches. You're gonna have to go through and destroy them all afterwards, but it's worth it just to get there without ruining it, because I'll tell you, when you're building something big like this and a creeper comes and destroys it, it does not feel good. And I'm gonna speed up a bit on this other side because, as I said earlier, the design on this side is exactly the same. There are no differences. Really just copy down what you've already built exactly the same on the other side. completely the same, no worries, and you can watch through what I already showed you or pause this, but or copy down what you've already built. But again, these are all pretty similar on all the walls, and each side is the same in terms of left to right. So it should be pretty easy once you have one side to just breeze through the next side and put these down pretty fast. So moving on, starting on this corner, we're going to build up just 2 blocks, then we're going to count 3, then 2 blocks, then coming outside, so there's another 3 space between. We're going to count 2 up. And we're just going to do these again with our stripped spruce wood pillars. We're just building these 2 up, and you'll notice this is actually directly in line with the pillar underneath it, which should be easier if you need to figure out the spacing. Then we can just again copy with a ring of dark prismarine or whatever roofing material you're using around the top. We can then again copy the same corner design that we already did where we're just building this up, and I'll show you again in first person just in case you forget from when we did it before, but it should be right under you, so you can also just copy it down from there. But this time again we can only use lanterns there because there will not be enough space to use something bigger like the bigger lantern design that I showed you before. From there, we're going to put in another wall with smooth sandstone again, just spaced 1 block away. You will notice on all of our walls, we're adding depth by having an outside pillar that is spaced away. That'll be the same for all the walls we build. Then, this design that we're going to put on this wall can be a bit complicated, but just watch a couple. Oops, we're going to put this here, a right side up stair, and then upside down, so it makes a little S shape. I just thought this looks cool, especially how it will connect to the fence right next to it, and we're going to do that on both sides. We'll show you again. This is just copied the same on the other side right here without any differences, and it should not be too much of a hassle. And then moving along to the front, you're going to pick a direction, but we're going to put this either to the left or to the right, and we're just going to space this. Again, this is a very similar design as to what we did before, but we're just copying it here, putting it down with our little S design as we showed you before. And I'll speed it up a bit as we're going into time lapse because, again, this can be a bit repetitive as we copy the same design. Now moving on from here, we're going to start our roof, and we're going to do this by first adding in another level, just like on the other one, just along the front though. From there, on the side, we're going to add in stairs of your chosen roof material, coming along, just as I'm showing you, and then I'm going to put a block under, but then destroy it. And you can collect this again, but just a block under to put it down, then destroy it. You can have this underneath side empty. And for future reference, whenever I use dirt in this build or in this tutorial, that means, or coarse dirt, you're going to destroy it. That's just like a temporary block for spacing. And the reason I'm putting it here is if you're building it, you're going to want something to catch those little under pieces that I just showed you are going to drop down. You can go through and catch them. And again, once you're finished, you can destroy that. I'll just have it gripped out here, and we'll move on to finish up this roof design. This is a very simple roof. We're just going up with basic stairs. Then at the top, just 1 layer of slab, and then another layer of slab a bit higher. Then at the end, we're going to take a stair, 1 facing away, and then 1 upside down, then a little lantern on top. And now I'm going to use gold blocks here, but gold can be expensive. You'll see that shouldn't poke out from the top. So you can use any yellow block or just smooth sandstone again here. Gold blocks will look great if you can afford it, but if not, do not sweat at all. Don't worry about getting something like that. Just add in smooth sandstone or something like that. Then we'll put in our upside down stairs here. Moving from there, we're going to move to the left or right side, but since I'm showing you in this perspective, you should probably go left with me. And we're just going to stack that up 3 high in that corner, then line this up with the little pillar coming up right there, then move 1 to the left, then move it up 3, just like I showed you. I'll show it again here. We're going to line up with that pillar, then move up 3 to the right this time, then back to the corner, just up 3. Again, just building these pillars in to frame how we're going to put in this building. This will become very repetitive in how we're doing it, and that each time we're going to build up our pillars, and then we're going to surround it by the little halo of our slab block, put in our little corners here, and this time we will have room, so I'm going to put in the full lantern design, the bigger one coming down with the jungle, or acacia if you like. I prefer the jungle just because I feel like it goes with the color palette of this build overall a bit more, but a lot of people when they make Japanese builds and do lanterns prefer to do acacia, so if you prefer that, that is completely good. Coming on the inside, we're going to do a ring along the bottom, just extending this one, and this will just frame coming around in a square, following those pillars that we already put in. Not too difficult, not too hard. Moving through here and breezing through this. And these little side buildings are kind of like their own little buildings. I like how they frame the main tower that we're putting in. Aside from that, we're going to put in this little wall again, and again, remember, we are always spacing this one back to add depth to our build. If I can give people one tip for making builds in Minecraft, it is to add as much depth as possible, because you can take a build that doesn't look great and make it look so much better just by adding in a bit of depth to it. It really just does make such a huge difference. Coming along here, you'll notice this design is slightly different, but it's still very similar to the design underneath it in terms of how we're putting this in. We're really just framing it with stairs along the left and right, putting in a few pillars in the middle, and watch the spacing for these aren't too bad. You can just copy those down. On the other side, we had 1 through the middle, and on this side, we're just doing 2 and 2, and 2 space 2 space 2. Now we're going to leave the very back blank just for now and then move again. On this side, this will be the same as the side. The opposite of it, so the back and front of this will be the same, but that left side from how we're looking at it right now will remain blank just for now. We'll fill that in later. Because it's going to be kind of semi-hallway area, we're going to leave that blank and move to it later. So from here, we're going to add in another layer, just coming up higher again, similar to what we've done before, moving this along with our chosen roof material. And I do want to hammer home, the derivatives of warped wood to make the roof on this do look really great. And now, coming from here, we're going to start the roof itself, and we're going to notice I am putting down our stairs coming onto this. And these stairs, the way that we direct the roof is it's going to slant up opposite to the last stair roof that we built. So it's going to face the front of the build, and copy this down. It's a very simple roof. Again, we're just moving up with stairs as I showed you. They're just coming straight up, and it is not too complicated. And from there, it's just going to come up straight, like I said, and then we're going to connect it at the very top, and we can move into the sides here. We're going to add a bit of depth here. We're going to put in some upside down stairs to frame it, then add in some smooth sandstone behind, and we can build in a little window here. I'll put down just with, again, our spruce wood and a couple spruce buttons to frame it. I'll go through a bit faster on this side because we're copying the same thing that we just did on the other side. Putting this down, and these sides aren't too important. You won't be looking at this very often. It'll just be a little place. Now, copy down this pattern I'm showing you right here. We're going to do this a total of 6 times in the build, and it is a nice little technique to curl up the roof. I'm just doing this with stairs, and again, watch over it a couple times. It's not too bad in terms of how it is to build. It's a pretty simple design in that it's just coming up in stairs opposite, stacking up. But watch over that a couple times, make sure you get it. Does not need to be completely perfect as I do it, and I'll go through a bit faster on this side. Now as we move to the other side of the build, I'm just going to rocket through this, copy down what you have already built on the other side. So literally this will be exactly the same. This is the exact same design, it is completely mirrored. Again, as we said at the beginning, this is a symmetrical build. Can be a hard word to say sometimes. We're just going to put this down. Now moving to the side, we're going to use dirt for the space, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to stack just one high, one above the roof that already exists. Then just copy that down. That's going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to stack up. Then we're going to just move to the side, 1, 2, and then break it, and then put it down. And now notice I'm going to break all of these, and these are just going to be one higher than the top of that first floor roof. Now moving on to the other side, we're going to come to this corner and count out 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right straight from there we'll put it one higher just as before, then 1, 2 out, and then 1, 2 back in, and then we can destroy all these pieces. This is just the base for our pillars. So as I come into third person here, we'll show you that this is the same on the other side. I'm going to go a bit faster, just copy the spacing from the first side onto the other side to keep the symmetry here. And then we're going to be able to extend all of these. And so I'm going to do this slowly. We're going to extend 1, 2, just 1, 2, excuse me, sorry. We're just going to extend 1, 2 on all of these, coming up, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This will be a shorter floor overall. Just coming through here, coming on 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 on all of these corners. From there, we're going to circle it again, our halo, coming around with our dark prismarine or chosen roof material. And I'll speed this up a bit, just encircle the overall shape. So this will form the shape that we're building here overall. And this is kind of, it's hard to describe, it's kind of like a really warped plus sign. And I'll show you, don't build this, but this is just to show you what the design overall should look like from up above what we've just done. Now we can start putting in our, again, you're going to be an absolute pro at this by the time we're done. We're just copying the same roof design where we curled up to the side all the way around and then add in our little lantern. Again, we're going to add this on every side, just coming through, building this up and adding in a little lantern. On this side there won't be enough room, so we're just going to do 3 regular lanterns. I'm sorry, right here the recording cut out for some reason. I didn't have it, so I'll just show you from up place. We're going to repeat that same thing on all the corners here, just what you've already built. From there, we're going to add in another layer of dark prismarine, this time coming around, and you'll notice this will be the same. You won't be able to see the wall underneath because we haven't put that in yet, but it is the same as the bottom floor in terms of adding in the slightly sloping up roof coming around 1/2 slab higher, and then again 1/2 slab higher from there. We can shape it with a full block, then destroy that, then just use half slabs all around to save a bit of resources, because again, this can be very expensive and we don't want that. Resource gathering in survival can be an absolute pain, so we're just going to make this as simple as possible. Coming in from here, we're going to add in our walls, again with smooth sandstone, and notice as I put these in, again, it's just spaced one back, so there will be the depth. This is the same wall design. I'll show you in first person for a second, then we'll switch into third person to make it easier to see how we're doing this overall. We're just spacing this all the way around as we come, and again, just spaced backwards. This should be in line with the last piece of overall roofing that we did, just like on the first floor, where the last piece hangs right over this wall that we're building if you're having some trouble figuring out where to put it. Now for the floor design, we're going to fill in any gaps below with more of our roofing material, then just fill it again, fill it in with our stairs, and put in little windows. We have lots of windows in this build, so that way, once we get to the interior, not in this video, in the next video coming up, we'll be able to have more light coming into it and just overall a more airy thing. Because once you get into these really big builds, it is very, very nice to have more room and more light when we're doing it. And do notice when there's not enough room, we're just going to put in those signs, just one sign at the bottom. We did that in the last part. On this little middle piece, you can just fill that in with more slabs, and we're going to come back to that later. So just leave those walls blank for now. On this side, this is a very similar pattern that we've put in before. We're just putting in our little stairs and then one little window right there and a button on the side, because we love our little cute buttons from here. And I'll jump into first person for a second to show you the spacing here. We're going to count 1, 2, 3. Push it up, 1, 2, 3, push it up, and you can guess the pattern. We're just pushing this 3 again, and we'll actually keep this pattern for most floors on the very back side. We're the same 3 spacing in between, but we'll get to that once we get to the next floor. Again, I'm sure you're picking up on the pattern now. We're putting these stairs next to any pillars, sideways on the outside, straight up or down along the center, and then windows on the middle with buttons and signs on the top and bottom as long as we have room for them. Now I'm going to breeze through this left side or right, depending on how you're looking at it, because again, same with this build as always, it's going to be completely symmetrical, so I don't want to waste your time. You are great people and you don't need to be shown the same thing twice. So we'll just speed through this. You can pause it if you're really having trouble here, just to look at what it is overall, but you should be able to just pop on down to the other side of your build and see how it's different or the same, and then copy it down. So now to start the little piece, I promised I would come back to it. We're going to come in and add our doors. I actually prefer to use birch doors on this just because I love the screen look to it, and it kind of blends in with the smooth sandstone. We're going to add in a couple more pillars here, and this side design is actually quite flat, it's quite simple, and we'll put in a little fence here. So first we're going to take our stairs and put them in the corners, and then just along the top we're going to put this in. There's not going to be any windows on the side, and notice on those pillars we're not putting in a bottom stair, just this top one. Onto the other side, we're going to add in another pair of doors, and this will line up completely with the first pair of doors. So you can just walk out and straight from there, copy it down. And the first pair of doors was centered. This pair on the main building is not completely centered. So you will see it's a bit offset, and that's why we're going to put in these pillars with a bit of an awkward spacing here. Now coming along here, we're just going to speed through this. This is a very similar design to the other side. We're just adding in these stairs, and then top on this one. On this side pillar that's standing alone, we can do a top and bottom. And then coming here, we're going to take a gate and a fence here in a second. I'm going to go alternating fence, gate, as I put these down, then fence, gate, and fence again. And now this is the right side. We're going to copy the exact same thing, keep our symmetry onto the other side, and it should be pretty easy. You can mark this down. I accidentally removed that block. You do not need to remove a pillar block on this side. Speed through this because we're copying the same thing down. Now moving on to the next floor, we're going to come to this corner and build it up. We're just going to mark these down, and for this floor we are literally only putting these in each corner and each outside corner. So you'll notice there's no real spacing here. We're just putting it down in the corners. I told you that it should get easier as we move up in floors where we don't have to worry about spacing enough. We're literally just putting these on the corners and it's not too bad. And then from there we can just start to stack them up. And as we get to that, we'll stack 1, 2, 3 higher. So overall it'll be 4 higher than the top of the roof below it. So these will be 4 higher, and our different floors are different heights because that's just I test this out with World Edit. That's what makes this build look the best. So we're just going to build all these up 4, and then we're going to move this ring out 1 more. This is very similar to what we did on those side builds. We're just going to extend that one out with our roofing material. Now we're going to build our halo around the top, and I am sure you know where this is going from here. We're going to add this halo in, and then we can start curling up the roof to get our more typical Chinese or Japanese look to this build, because that's a very important staple to defining what this build is supposed to be. Because you can't actually take a build like this that's very similar and make it into a medieval castle with some very simple changes to the design overall and the roof design. It could actually look very medieval European or German more. And so from here, we'll add in more of our smooth sandstone, creating the wall. And I'll show you again, just this time, that in first person how we're doing this, and then switch to third person. It should get pretty easy as you do this more and more, because this wall is pretty similar. It's just pushed one back in line so that there's a bit of depth, but leave the very front open because we are going to add in a little floor here made with just spruce planks. And that's so that we can put in a veranda as we're moving in later. Now moving on to the detailing, we're going to add this in, and this side we're going to do a trick. You may remember I used this on my last just plain Japanese house, which actually has a pretty similar design to this one overall. And we're going to add in these little plants. So the plants are just hanging. We can put down actually a nice little iron bar, and then underneath the iron bar, I'll do it again on this side, we showed on the last side, I'll show it again on this side, a pot, and then a little fern so it actually does look like it's hanging. I absolutely love how these look just on these builds, just due to the color palette that I'm using with the spruce and our smooth sandstone. I think it blends in absolutely perfectly and adds to it. And like I said, this is the same as the one below it, where the spacing here is just 3, 3, 3 in below these pillars that we've inscribed. It's just 3, 3, 3, and then you can put it in, and putting in our little windows. And this design is a bit different because for once we have enough room for a 2-high window on this floor. And so we can add in our plant design as well as the buns and the signs on top and bottom. We'll speed through from here because we're copying down the same design that we already have. And really on each one of these floors, if you don't want to completely copy the design that I'm giving, you can honestly change up these designs just with adding stairs, windows, plants, buttons. As long as you put them down however you like, they will look good just from a distance. Now we'll add in one more layer of 1 higher slab, just 1/2 block higher. Then, note what I'm doing here. We're just going to do this 1 higher than that, but only over the veranda. So we aren't going to do this for the whole build. That is only going to be for this little section. And the reason why is the next story up is going to come directly up from here, so we don't have room to push in the roof any farther. So now coming on here for the veranda, I'm going to space this out 2 from the wall. Then I'm just doing this, and these are andesite walls to build our little kind of fence area. Just fence it off. We're going to extend these up, and you'll notice they don't completely connect because there is a top slab above them. So we'll take a slab and just fill that in so it's a full block so it connects now. Shouldn't be too bad. We can connect that, then bring it back. Then we're just going to take our spruce gates, and the nice thing, the reason why we're using walls here as opposed to fences or something else, is we can get this cool design when you put them down so they alternate higher and lower. Now in the corners we're going to do a pot, a dead bush, then whatever leaves you want. I'm using oak leaves, and just put down your leaves 2 high just to add a bit of foliage to the build. And then from here, we're going to put down a couple lights. These are just sea lanterns with brown carpets over them to cover that there is a light there. From here, we are going to build up. What we are doing here, you will notice this, we're building up from the pillar below them. So the pillar right below them is just getting stacked up, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and it's just going to be 3 higher. On these corners we're lower, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. And notice this is just literally carrying the last floor up 1 floor higher, so the same dimensions as the floor below it. And as we come up here, you'll notice again, make sure that you copy the same height that I am, because that part is very important. We're just doing 3 high on the ones that are built up 1, because they're on a corner that has been bended up, and then for the ones that are inside, the inside corners, those are building up 4 from there. Then from there, we're going to come around and connect this all with a halo. You've gotten very, very good at this point, and I promise you won't have to do this too many more times. We're going to build this up and then add them in. The important thing is we only have room for a regular lantern here, so just like a regular lantern, not a special design, because the floors aren't spaced that far apart, so you won't be able to fit in the whole design. It'll look kind of wonky where it's connecting to the little fence under it, and that can be kind of distracting when you're putting this in. And so I prefer to just use a regular lantern there. And trust me, keeping this floor 1 lower than the floor below it is very beneficial to how it looks overall. I tested this with World Edit, and it will look a lot better when this floor is a bit lower. There isn't as much room between it. And so coming in, we'll add our wall design as before, and we'll come along here and just push this in. And again, living room, we will build in a second veranda here as well, so we're going to extend the wall out at all. There'll just be another floor there. Now coming along here, you'll notice the floor below them, or the roof below them, is actually a bottom slab. So you will have to fill in for our bottom stairs that we're putting in. You're going to end up putting in a slab underneath. So you'll see we put down the stair, then we put down a slab underneath the stair to make up that extra room. And then there's only 1 in between, so no plants this time, just our buns. And again, whenever you have any extra space like we have right here, we can just fill that in with our half slabs covering up the bottom. And on these side, I wanted to change it up a bit, so I just did signs covering that up. Again, if you wanted to, you could do a little window there. You could change it up from what I'm doing, but I just prefer changing up floor to floor, making it a bit different. And you'll notice coming along here, we're going to do a slightly different design with stairs. We're going to add in just little stairs framing with our roof material. And this is optional. You could just put a slab underneath, but it adds in a bit more depth to the build overall and makes up for the fact that we are just kind of doing this wonky thing where there's a half slab, so it has to kind of change materials where you can't just build it straight up with our oak. Well, you could, but you'd have to break them underneath. That would look a bit weird. And now from here, we're going to add in, this is going to be very similar to the floor below it, because we're again just building pretty much the same veranda. We're going to put in, just stacked up 1 little halo around, then 1 higher again, putting these in, and then along the bottom we're going to copy the same dimensions, because remember, we did not move how far apart our pillars are coming onto this level. They're all the same, and so when you put these down, they can be the same for our little andesite walls as well. And then we'll put down the rest of the ceiling and our little gates coming around to just partition off this point so you don't go absolutely eating off the side. Could be a bit unfortunate if you're doing this in survival and you fall off the side and die. So then we'll add in a bit more light. This side will be more even, and the reason why the one below it is not even is a surprise for the end, which is going to be our little pond. Love adding in little ponds these build, but we'll get to that part later. Add in a few lanterns, and then we will actually we'll extend back the floor 1, and just to form a wall, we're actually going to use a little screen here. So I'm using acacia trapdoors. You could also use birch trapdoors if you like, but this is just 3 high, then putting those all down to form a little even wall here. Moving back, this next floor is going to be very high. We're going to put that down and then count 2 over to the side, break it, and then put down this, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, with counting 5 on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4 higher. It's going to be a higher floor. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 4. Then 5 in the corners, inside corners where it's not already elevated. And so from here, we're going to again just repeat the same process. This should be getting pretty easy now because we've done it before. So we're going to partition this off, curl up each side. Should not be too bad. as we watch this. And if you need to go back to make sure you get the height right, watch what I did in first person when it's a bit slower, and make sure you get the height for this floor, because again, the floors are not all even in height. I made my last Japanese castle a bit more simple. This one's a bit more extravagant in its design, so there's more differences in terms of the height and stuff. I thought that it would be a bit nice to go for a bit more complicated build this time. Now we're going to build 3 out with full blocks, and then from there, after the 3, we're just going to do a top slab. So there's a bit of difference once we get down to the bottom. That'll look different. And then from there, we're just going to count 1, 2, 3. This can be hard to see on the dark prismarine, but there is a spacing of 3 in between these, then 1, 2, 3, and then put it down. So it will look even as long as you space 3 in between each pillar there. And then again, start our wall. We will breeze through it pretty fast this time because everything's the same. There is no veranda on this side, so we can just extend it all the way through with our smooth sandstone covering up the front as well as the rest of it. Coming through, and we'll speed this up a bit, and there should be just enough room for the side buildings, and our plus is looking a bit more even now. And as we add these in, we will add in some more stairs, and because this one is a bigger floor, we can start adding in some full windows and plants this time. And if for some reason you ended up building this floor 1 too low or 1 too high, it's literally fine. Like, the spacing is not that incredibly important for how high this floor is. Like, you could have 3 high windows or you could have 1 high windows. If you don't get it the same, like, do not start freaking out and feeling like you have to tear everything down. Just move on, because it'll honestly look fine and you will not really be able to tell that much of a difference. It'll look great either way. We'll extend in this little piece of ceiling, floor there beneath it, ceiling for the floor below, and put these in. And we're going to do the same little stair trick that we did last time for the roof here, where we take in our roofing material and add in the stairs. I'll get to this in a second as I put this down, and these little stair pieces. And remember, on this back, the spacing is always 3, 3, 3 all the way coming up. Then very simple on these little corners. You'll notice on this build, as opposed to my last build, which is just completely even, this one is in more of that plus shape, which just really does add in a lot of cool little pieces of it. Adds in a lot of depth to it. Now these are going to space 3 apart. We're going to add in 2 little A-frames. Pretty much all Japanese castles have these little A-frames. That is a very important inclusion. Even on this one, which is a bit atypical as compared to others, we're still going to add in a couple little A-frames here. Very simple design. We'll put a little cute butt in there in the middle and then keep on moving this backwards. It shouldn't be that bad, and we can keep extending it. And coming on from here, we're going to add in a little roof design. You'll remember we kind of did this similar in my last design, where we just put in half of the same design that we've done, just kind of poking out past the A-frames. In every Japanese castle that I've built, I do the same thing where I add in like the A-frames push back, and then I do a little peekaboo, like a little window kind of poking out through there. It's not completely. Now, coming back into the upper veranda, we're going to add in a couple lights. You can place these really wherever they fit, but you can also try and copy how I'm putting them down. These are just a couple little extra pieces of lighting. And at the very end, we're going to talk about lighting a bit more if you're building this in survival, because if you're in survival, you're probably going to want to add in some extra lighting. But aside from that, for this next floor, we can do our very simple, we've done this a million times at this point. We get the drill. We can move on. Yeah, we're going to put these down, just coming up, slanting upwards with 2, 2. And we're getting pretty close to the end of this build in terms of moving upward. We just have a couple more floors. This floor, we are just putting in every corner again. So every inside corner and tagging it up 1, 2, 3, 4. Then every outside corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just coming along here, stacking these up, and no fancy spacings or anything. Just take the roof that you already have and put these in each corner so they come up. Then we can encircle it like always. We get it, we can move on. Sorry if I'm hammering this home, but these little designs, when you're building these more Japanese style designs, they do become rather repetitive when you're putting them, but that kind of is the point to get the design right. You're gonna have these roofs that stack up on top of each other and curl up like I'm showing you. And this side, remember the being I said only once, they won't be able to completely fit in. This is that one side, so because you only have 2 blocks there, you won't be able to completely fit it in on the sides there, but you'll just see I just kind of smush them together. Not really an issue. We can add in our wall here, and one unique thing about this wall is this will actually just be a 2 by 2 block kind of coming up right here, a little box coming up there because it's going to be, there's just not enough room to fit in a full building there. From here, we're going to start another A-frame. This is just one big A-frame coming along here. Start right close to the end like I show you. Just kind of copy down this spacing right here, and we'll put down our stairs, and those probably should use dirt because I promised that dirt would be our destroyable block, but right there, we'll use some smooth sandstone instead. And then coming from there, we can add in our stairs, and again, we're not doing too much bendy aside from like the very corner of our roofs. The rest of it is a very simple, just coming up straight together. When I'm building these builds on my own, I a lot of times will prefer to kind of make them kind of slanted, kind of curving up, like a quadratic curve or whatever you want to look at. But on these ones I'm showing you the tutorial, we just put them straight up in a little A-frame that is an actual straight A-frame. So as we look at this, it'll be similar. This one is 4 high even, and I prefer to put a little S there. Again, this is a bigger S design than the last one, and then just little two layers of signs right there. And again, these little changes in details are not actually necessary at all. I'm showing you because I prefer in my builds to have just a bit of difference, and on the back I'm going to speed it up. This is going to be exactly the same as the front. There is no difference from this back and this front, so just copy the front onto the back. Just exactly the same, literally the same. And moving the side will speed it up. If you don't want to do like my S or the more complicated stuff, you really don't have to. And we'll speed through this, we're just adding in another halo. As I was saying for the floor below, if you don't want to add the S or anything like that, you can just do another window design instead. So from here, we're just going to add in, this is the very, very last floor. Moving upward, we're going to add in 4, 4, 4. Excuse me, 3, 3, 3. Those are all 3 high, not 4 high. 3 high in each corner, and this should nearly make a box. It's not quite a box because one side has a 2-block center and one block has a 1-block center. We're just adding those on the side, curling this up very simply, our little lantern designs. Building in a wall. I'm gonna absolutely breeze through this. We've seen it. And then from there, we can add in this is the front side that we're looking at right now. We're looking at the very front side right now. There's going to just be one pillar in the very center, and we're not putting signs on this. You could if you want to, but it's going to be so far away, they might not even render in if you're looking at this from far away at this high up. Or if they aren't, it's fine whether or not. And so we're gonna add this in. The back is the same as the front because at this high we are keeping it symmetrical. And then again, we're gonna move on to the left side, which will be the same as the right side. And so from here, we can start working on our very, very last roof piece. It's very simple. We are just going to first start by stacking around our little first layer, then starting from the front. Make sure that you're copying this the same. This is going to be flush with the front. So if you're looking at this from straight on, you will see the stairs arching up like a stairway. I'm going to put these in. I'm just going to stack these up on both sides. There's a 2-block center from here, just on this, the same as on the little side buildings that we already put in, which is atypical. A lot of people prefer 1-block centers. For this one, because it's such a big build, I preferred to make it a bit thicker with a 2-block center on top. And I just for me, I prefer having a bit of differences where sometimes a 2-block center can look cool in terms of being a different design. They're just going to fill this last bit in, and I promise we are so close to finishing this build. If you made it this far, you are an absolute amazing person. That is so wonderful. And you will have a great, great, great build in your great build in your world. So from here, we're going to move on and add in, this is the same as the side buildings, the same curled up design. I'll show you one more time because it's been a while realistically since we built those side buildings. And put these in. I'll show you again. You can watch over this a couple times. Then just put a couple fences up at the top, and we'll go a bit faster on this side, and just put in this little arching kind of horned look. Now for our very, very final piece to this, aside from lighting, if you're in survival, we're going to add in a little kind of pond area here. And this is a kind of forward for the interior that you'll eventually put in this, and this video is so long. We'll have to move on to the interior in the next video. We're going to add this in, and we're going to add those in 5 in the center. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the same design that I showed you. And we can cut this out, and we're just doing this with stone brick blocks. You could realistically do something like polished andesite here instead, if you think that looks cool. And really with my tutorials, always, if you want to use a different block, because you think it looks cooler, totally go for it. Like, you are not at all held into doing the same pattern or gradient or anything that I'm doing. So from here we're going to do this super cool, almost curtain design that I love using in a fair amount of my builds, especially modern ones, but this one is not modern, but it still fits well. We're going to take end rods and light blue stained glass panes and put these in, and you'll see that they don't connect as long as you alternate them, then just fill this up with water. From there, we're going to go to the one story above and add in these 3 little pieces where it's just straight through, and add in the super cool waterfall feature. I love the way this works, and it really adds a lot of flavor to the build overall. If we back up and look at this from a bit of a distance, you have this waterfall that goes between the stories down to lower. Finally, we can add in these last 2 lanterns that I forgot to add in earlier. Optional, but I prefer keeping them in. Sorry. Forgot about these up until now. Finally, this is only if you're doing it in survival, but extra lighting is going to be necessary. So I'm just showing you a couple ways that you can add in extra lighting. If you're in survival, we're just going to come through and add in a ton of extra lighting, a ton. If you're in creative, you don't need to worry about this part, but in survival, you're just going to figure out ways to add in lighting all through it, where you can cover up just lanterns, just stack lanterns all over the roof, put lanterns, break the signs if you need to put the lanterns, put them along the ground with carpet. And you can only do this in a few places, but where there's room, you can also come in and break this like this. For me, these can be a bit random. You're just going to put the extra lighting in. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope that you enjoyed and you found it helpful. I used something like 100 different clips for this. It took me a very long time. So if you did enjoy it, please consider subscribing to the Classy Kiwi Show, Classy Kiwi Minecraft. And with that, I will see you all next time. Have a great day, and remember, as always, to stay classy, my friends. See ya!